What if I told you that the greatest power in your life is already within you, quietly waiting to be trained, directed, and unleashed? The mind, once disciplined, becomes the architect of destiny. And when you train your mind, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, you cannot achieve. This is Earl Nightingale. I'd like to talk with you today about the most powerful tool you own, your mind. It's invisible, silent, and often taken for granted, yet it contains the power to shape every detail of your life. Most people drift through their days, allowing outside circumstances to dictate what they think, how they feel, and what they attempt. But a few, just a few, learn the timeless secret: the mind properly trained will deliver to you anything you sincerely desire. Think for a moment about the great men and women of history. Leaders, inventors, pioneers. They were not born with greater minds than you. They were born with the same raw material you have. The difference lies in training. They understood that the mind is like a muscle. It grows stronger with discipline, repetition, and focused use. Training your mind begins with what you allow it to dwell upon. Every thought you permit to take root is like a seed planted in the fertile soil of your subconscious. Plant weeds, and you will harvest weeds. Plant goals, purpose, and clear images of success, and your harvest will astonish you. Begin each day by directing your mind toward your desired outcome. Write down your goal, make it specific, make it clear, and read it often. Picture yourself already in possession of it. Hold that picture as if it were already yours. This is not idle daydreaming. It is mental training, and just as surely as a trained athlete builds muscle, a trained thinker builds achievement. Guard against the negative. The world is filled with distractions, fear, doubt, criticism. A trained mind does not ignore these, but it refuses to be ruled by them. Instead, it responds with reason, faith, and persistence. And never forget this: action cements thought into reality. A trained mind is not content with theory, it moves steadily toward its purpose. Each step, no matter how small, confirms the belief that the goal will be reached. So train your mind to believe, to focus, to persist, for once the mind is disciplined, life bends to its command. The mind, properly trained, will deliver to you anything you sincerely desire. Your mind is your most valuable asset. Train it daily. The wealth of nations, the rise of civilizations, the inventions that shaped our modern lives, all began as thoughts in the mind of an individual who dared to cultivate and train it. The mind is the one possession you carry with you at all times. Unlike material assets, it cannot be stolen, inherited, or transferred. It is uniquely yours. Yet most people spend more time polishing their shoes, planning their meals, or scrolling through distractions than they do training the very faculty that determines the course of their lives. Training the mind is not a single event, nor is it achieved by accident. It is a deliberate, daily practice, much like strengthening the body through exercise. You would not expect to gain strength by lifting weights once and setting them aside. In the same way, you cannot expect to achieve clarity, wisdom, or success if you allow your thoughts to drift uncontrolled day after day. Each day presents an opportunity to sharpen the mind, to feed it with ideas of substance, to focus it on what matters most, and to guide it toward the achievement of worthy goals. Consider the difference between a mind trained and one left idle. An untrained mind becomes like a field left unattended, overrun with weeds, producing nothing of value. But a trained mind is like a carefully cultivated garden, where seeds of purpose, faith, and creativity grow into fruitful outcomes. When you take time each day to guide your thoughts, you begin to separate the useful from the useless. You begin to recognize when fear or doubt tries to creep in, and you replace them with determination and clarity. Daily training can take many forms. Reading good books, listening to inspiring ideas, reflecting on your goals, writing down your plans, and engaging in thoughtful conversation are all forms of mental exercise. Each strengthens your ability to think clearly, to reason effectively, and to make wise decisions. Just as a bodybuilder grows stronger through resistance, your mind grows sharper by confronting challenges, solving problems, and disciplining itself to focus on what you choose rather than what chance dictates. Another essential element of training the mind is repetition. The thoughts you repeat to yourself every day form the beliefs that govern your actions. If you repeatedly affirm your limitations, they harden into walls. If you repeatedly affirm your potential, they become doors. The daily repetition of constructive thoughts builds habits of confidence, persistence, and vision. Over time, these habits shape character, and character shapes destiny. A trained mind also recognizes the importance of direction. Without a clear goal, the most powerful mind in the world wanders aimlessly, wasting energy on trivial pursuits. But once a goal is fixed in the mind, every experience, every challenge, every encounter becomes a stepping stone toward its fulfillment. The mind has a way of finding answers, attracting resources, and creating opportunities for the person who knows where he is going. The greatest fortunes ever made, the most profound discoveries ever achieved, and the highest forms of leadership ever demonstrated came from individuals who valued their minds and trained them daily. They understood that thoughts shape reality and that reality begins within. To train your mind is to take control of your life at the deepest level, to become the master rather than the victim of circumstance, and to hold in your grasp the power to design a future of your own choosing. Thought is the seed of achievement. Guard it carefully. Every building you see, every invention you use, every success story you admire, began first as a thought in the mind of a person who dared to hold on to it and cultivate it until it became reality. Nothing can come into being until it has first existed in thought. Just as a mighty oak tree begins as a small acorn, every achievement, great or small, begins with a single idea. Yet the seed of thought is fragile, easily overlooked, and often trampled by neglect, fear, or the opinions of others. That is why it must be guarded with the same care a farmer gives to his most precious seed. If you plant corn, you will not harvest wheat. If you plant roses, you will not expect thorns alone. The law of harvest is exact, and the mind operates by the same law. What you sow in thought, you will reap in action, habit, and result. If you allow fear, doubt, resentment, or laziness to occupy your mind, those seeds will grow and take root, producing a harvest of missed opportunities and disappointment. If instead you sow ideas of courage, purpose, faith, and determination, your life will naturally align itself with achievement. It cannot be otherwise, for life always mirrors the dominant thoughts of the mind. Guarding thought begins with awareness. Most people drift through their days unaware of what occupies their minds, like a farmer who never looks at his fields. But the wise person examines his thoughts, choosing deliberately which to entertain and which to discard. He does not allow every negative suggestion from the outside world to take root, nor does he permit idle worry to sap his energy. Instead, he trains himself to dwell on ideas that build him up, that move him toward his goals, that enrich both himself and others. To guard thought also requires discipline. It is not enough to merely hope for positive ideas. One must feed the mind daily with material worthy of growth. Books, lectures, conversations, and even moments of solitude, all these are the soil conditioners for the mind. Expose yourself to uplifting ideas and they will multiply. Spend time with destructive influences, and you will find your thoughts poisoned. Just as a careful gardener pulls weeds the moment they appear, you must pull harmful thoughts before they entrench themselves in habit. The seed of achievement is delicate at first. It may appear foolish, impossible, or impractical. Many have abandoned great ideas because they mistook them for fantasies. But those who guard the seed, who water it with belief, who shield it from ridicule and nourish it with persistence, eventually see it grow into something far greater than they first imagined. The world rewards those who protect their thoughts with faith and determination, for from such seeds come the innovations, the movements, the victories, and the personal triumphs that change the course of history. Your thoughts are not casual visitors, they are builders, shapers, and creators. Guard them carefully, for in them lies the beginning of every achievement. What you think about consistently, you move toward inevitably. The human mind is designed to follow the direction of its dominant thoughts, much like a ship follows its compass or a train follows its tracks. Whatever occupies your mind most often begins to shape your decisions, your actions, and eventually your destiny. It is not chance that determines where you arrive in life, but the persistent direction of your thoughts. When you dwell on an idea long enough, you begin to attract the circumstances, the people, and the opportunities that make it possible. Every achievement, every failure, every habit is the product of repeated thought. Think long enough about courage, and you will find yourself acting bravely in moments that once would have made you retreat. Think constantly about fear, and you will shrink from opportunities even when success is within your reach. The mind cannot hold on to a thought without eventually translating it into reality. This is why successful people fix their attention on what they want, not on what they fear. They understand that whatever dominates the mind sets the direction of their lives. The law of consistent thought operates whether we are conscious of it or not. If you spend your days consumed by worry, you will draw to yourself the very troubles you imagine. If you allow yourself to replay failure, you will unknowingly act in ways that ensure more of it. But if you consistently see yourself as capable, strong, and destined for growth, your subconscious mind will begin working to align your actions with that belief. You will speak differently, carry yourself with more assurance, and recognize opportunities where others see only obstacles. This principle works because the mind is both architect and builder. First, it creates a blueprint through imagination, Then it moves the body to act according to that design. When you think about a goal consistently, your mind begins to scan your environment for ways to achieve it. You notice possibilities that others miss, you take steps that once seemed insignificant but gradually lead you closer. And you persist through setbacks because your thoughts keep reminding you of where you are headed. To harness this power, you must be intentional with your thoughts. Begin by asking yourself what occupies your mind most often. Is it your fears, your doubts, your regrets, or is it your goals, your vision, your potential? Once you know the answer, you can begin to shift the balance. Write down what you want to achieve, read it daily, picture it in your mind, and let it take root until it becomes the natural background of your thinking. The more consistently you hold a thought, the more inevitable its realization becomes. Great lives are not accidents. They are the result of persistent thought fixed on a definite purpose. The farmer who plants corn cannot reap wheat, and the person who thinks constantly about defeat cannot expect victory. What you feed your mind becomes the harvest of your life. What you think about consistently, you move toward inevitably, for thought is the silent force that shapes action. And action is the path that leads you to your destiny. Self-discipline is the bridge between desire and reality. Everyone holds within themselves a multitude of desires, dreams of success, visions of achievement, hopes for a better future. Yet desires alone are not enough, for the world is filled with people who want, but far fewer who achieve. The difference lies not in talent, not in fortune, not even in opportunity, but in the ability to practice self-discipline. Without it, desire remains a distant dream, but with it, the dream becomes a plan, and the plan becomes a reality. Self-discipline is the power to govern yourself when no one else is watching. It is the strength to say no to distractions, to rise above excuses, and to remain faithful to your goal long after the excitement of the beginning has faded. Desire can spark motivation, but it is discipline that sustains momentum. Many start a journey with enthusiasm, yet only those who master themselves arrive at the destination. This is why discipline has been called the great separator. It distinguishes those who simply wish from those who accomplish. Imagine a bridge stretching across a vast river. On one side stands desire, full of hope and potential. On the other side stands reality, where the dream has taken form. Between the two lies a gap that cannot be crossed by wishing alone. The only way across is the bridge of discipline. Each act of self-control, each decision to persist, each refusal to quit becomes another plank laid upon that bridge. Step by step, act by act, you build the passage that carries you from wanting to having, from imagining to living. Self-discipline shows itself in the small choices of daily life. It is waking early when comfort calls you to sleep longer. It is choosing to work on your craft instead of wasting hours in distraction. It is controlling your words, your thoughts, your habits so that they align with your greater purpose. These small victories compound over time, forming character and shaping destiny. A single act of discipline may seem insignificant, but repeated daily, it creates the momentum that transforms ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. Desire without discipline leads to frustration. Many dream of wealth yet spend carelessly, of health yet neglect their bodies, of mastery yet fail to practice. The world rewards not the dreamer who drifts, but the disciplined individual who acts. When you apply self-discipline, you align your actions with your desires. You no longer live at the mercy of moods or circumstances, you live according to principle. You become dependable to yourself, and that dependability is the foundation of confidence. The disciplined person discovers freedom, for discipline is not a cage but a key. It frees you from the tyranny of impulse, from the control of bad habits, from the weight of regret. It allows you to stand tall, knowing that you can rely on yourself to do what needs to be done, whether or not you feel like it. In the end, desire sets the direction, but discipline walks the path. Self-discipline is the bridge between desire and reality, and every step across it brings you closer to the life you have imagined. Your environment shapes your mind. Choose it wisely. The mind is not an isolated island. It is constantly absorbing influences, ideas, and impressions from the surroundings in which it lives. Just as a seed planted in fertile soil grows strong and healthy, while the same seed placed in poor soil struggles to survive, the human mind thrives or withers depending on the quality of its environment. Every word you hear, every book you read, every conversation you engage in, and every person you spend time with leaves an imprint. Over time, those imprints form patterns of thought, and those patterns shape the direction of your life. If you place yourself in an environment filled with negativity, criticism, and small-minded thinking, it becomes difficult to rise above it. Even the strongest mind can be worn down by constant exposure to doubt and fear. Ideas of failure, scarcity, and limitation act like weeds in a garden, slowly choking the growth of potential. On the other hand, if you surround yourself with people of vision, books of substance, and places that inspire, your mind naturally begins to reach higher. Encouragement, creativity, and ambition act as sunlight and water, nourishing the seeds of your desires until they grow into reality. The influence of environment is subtle, which is why many fail to guard it. Few would willingly drink poisoned water, yet many drink in poisonous ideas every day without resistance. News filled with fear, conversations drenched in gossip, hours wasted on trivial entertainment, these are not neutral. They shape the mind in ways often unnoticed until years later, when a person finds himself wondering why he never achieved what he once dreamed of. The truth is, his environment was silently shaping his mind away from greatness. You cannot always control every aspect of your environment, but you can control what you allow into your inner world. You can choose the voices you listen to, the mentors you follow, the company you keep, and the thoughts you entertain. If you cannot find inspiration around you, create it. Read books that lift your thinking, listen to recordings that challenge you, and seek out people who stretch your vision rather than shrink it. A single conversation with the right person can shift the course of your destiny, just as surely as years of exposure to the wrong influence can drag you away from it. History is filled with examples of individuals who changed the course of their lives simply by changing their environment. They moved away from those who held them back, sought out places where growth was possible, and exposed themselves daily to ideas that expanded their horizons. The same principle holds true today. If you wish to rise, surround yourself with rising people. If you wish to think greatly, expose yourself to great thinkers. If you wish to achieve your desires, place yourself in an environment that makes achievement not only possible but inevitable. Your environment is the silent sculptor of your mind, shaping it day by day, and the shape of your mind will determine the shape of your life. Success is not luck, but the natural outcome of controlled thought. Too often people look at those who have achieved greatness and attribute it to chance, timing, or fortune. They imagine that success belongs only to the favored few, blessed by circumstances beyond their control. Yet when you study the lives of those who have built lasting achievements, a pattern becomes unmistakably clear. They did not drift into success by accident. They arrived there because they learned to harness and direct their thoughts with precision and persistence. Thought is the starting point of every accomplishment. It is the blueprint from which reality is constructed. A scattered mind, filled with conflicting ideas and dominated by impulse, cannot produce sustained achievement. Just as an architect must first design a building with clarity before construction begins, so must a person design his life through controlled thought. When you discipline your thinking, focusing on clear goals, feeding the mind with constructive ideas, and refusing to dwell on failure, you create a foundation upon which success naturally rests. Luck may play a role in isolated events, but it cannot build a lasting life of purpose. Controlled thought, on the other hand, is steady and dependable. It guides decisions, influences actions, and shapes habits. A person who consistently holds in mind an image of success will inevitably act in ways that align with that image. Opportunities that others overlook will become visible. Strength to endure setbacks will appear when it is most needed. The world responds not to random wishes, but to the focused intention of a controlled mind. The danger lies in underestimating the power of thought. Many assume their daily reflections are harmless, forgetting that repeated thoughts become beliefs, and beliefs dictate behavior. Allow negative thoughts to linger, and you will act out of fear and doubt. Train your thoughts to dwell on growth, and you will move with confidence and clarity. Controlled thought is not about ignoring reality, but about shaping it. By holding a definite purpose steadily in your mind, you begin to mold your circumstances rather than letting circumstances mold you. Discipline in thought requires daily effort. Just as the body weakens without exercise, the mind loses strength when left unattended. Each morning provides a chance to direct your thinking toward your goals, to remind yourself of what you seek, and to align your actions with your vision. Over time, this practice develops a powerful habit of focus. The person who trains his mind to think constructively, consistently, and deliberately finds himself moving steadily towards success, while others drift aimlessly, hoping luck will favor them. Success is not a mystery reserved for the fortunate. It is the natural result of a mind that has been trained to think clearly, purposefully, and persistently. When you learn to control your thoughts, you take control of your destiny, for the outer life is always a reflection of the inner world. Luck is uncertain and fleeting, but controlled thought produces results as sure as the sunrise. Persistence and patience are the companions of a trained mind. Every worthwhile achievement requires more than talent, more than desire, and more than vision. It requires the steady strength to continue in the face of difficulty and the quiet endurance to wait for results while maintaining unwavering faith in the outcome. A trained mind understands that success is not built overnight, but is the product of consistent effort applied over time. Just as rivers carve valleys not through force but through persistence, so too does the human spirit shape destiny through constant application of will and patience. Persistence is the refusal to give up when obstacles appear. It is the determination to press forward despite discouragement, setbacks, or delays. The untrained mind easily surrenders when confronted with difficulty, mistaking temporary defeat for permanent failure. But a trained mind sees obstacles as tests, challenges designed to strengthen resolve. Each time persistence is exercised, mental toughness grows, and with it comes the certainty that progress is inevitable as long as the effort continues. Many who give up are often only steps away from success, never realizing that persistence would have carried them across the threshold. Patience is the partner of persistence. It is the understanding that growth takes time, that the seeds planted today do not bear fruit tomorrow. A farmer does not plant a seed and dig it up the next day to check its progress. He trusts the process, tends the soil, and allows nature to take its course. In the same way, the trained mind plants the seeds of thought, nourishes them with action, and waits calmly for the results to manifest. Impatience leads to frustration, and frustration often leads to quitting, but patience preserves energy and keeps the mind steady on the long journey toward success. When persistence and patience work together, they form an unstoppable force. Persistence ensures that effort never ceases, while patience ensures that discouragement never takes root. Together they protect the mind from the extremes of rushing ahead too quickly or abandoning the path too soon. Great accomplishments are rarely sudden. They are the result of countless small steps taken consistently and with faith. Each step, though it may seem insignificant at the moment, contributes to the final outcome. A trained mind recognizes that time is an ally, not an enemy. With persistence, time multiplies effort. With patience, time allows growth to unfold in its season. The untrained mind demands instant results, seeking shortcuts and abandoning the journey when they are not found. But the disciplined thinker embraces the long view, knowing that success belongs to those who endure. Every story of greatness bears witness to these two companions. Inventors who failed hundreds of times before discovering the right solution, leaders who endured years of hardship before realizing their vision, artists who labored in obscurity before their work was recognized. All were sustained by persistence and patience. A trained mind knows that the combination of these two virtues makes achievement not only possible but inevitable. Imagination directed by discipline becomes creation. Every invention, every discovery, every masterpiece was once an idea unseen by the world but vivid in the mind of its creator. Imagination is the spark that allows us to see beyond what is into what could be. It is the faculty that lifts us above the present moment and gives us glimpses of a better future. Yet imagination alone, without direction, can drift into fantasy and illusion. It is discipline that takes the raw power of imagination and channels it into form, giving it structure, substance, and life. When the two work together, dreams cease to be idle visions and become realities that shape the world. Imagination is the seed of all progress. It allows us to picture new possibilities, to design solutions, and to visualize achievements before they exist. Every bridge built, every cure discovered, every business started began as a picture in someone's mind. But a seed left unattended will never grow. Without discipline, imagination can remain locked in the realm of wishful thinking, inspiring but never producing. Discipline is the soil, the water, and the sunlight that nurture the seed, ensuring that what begins in thought finds expression in reality. Discipline gives imagination focus. A person may dream of wealth, health, or success, but without the discipline to act consistently, the dream remains intangible. Imagination paints the picture of the desired outcome, but discipline provides the brushstrokes that make the picture visible on the canvas of life. Each daily effort, each repeated habit, each sacrifice made in the direction of the vision is an act of discipline that brings imagination closer to creation. Without discipline, the picture fades. With it, the picture grows sharper until it becomes undeniable. Many confuse imagination with idle dreaming, but the trained mind understands the difference. Dreaming is unfocused and fleeting, while imagination is purposeful and creative. Discipline ensures that imagination is not wasted on empty visions, but directed toward meaningful goals. This is why great creators, whether artists, inventors, or leaders, often appear both visionary and practical. They dream boldly, yet they live with structure. They hold vast ideas, yet they work daily with precision. Their imagination is not a cloud that drifts, but a river that flows, guided by the channels of discipline. Imagination and discipline together are responsible for the world's greatest achievements. Thomas Edison imagined a world lit by electric light, but it was his discipline through thousands of experiments that turned imagination into creation. Michelangelo saw David within the marble, but it was his discipline with chisel and hammer that revealed it to the world. The Wright brothers imagined human flight, but their disciplined trials and adjustments gave wings to their vision. In every case, imagination provided the spark, but discipline carried the fire forward. When imagination is directed by discipline, the impossible becomes possible. The vision within the mind becomes a reality others can see, touch, and experience. It is the union of vision and effort, dream and persistence, thought and action. Imagination opens the door to new worlds, but only discipline can lead you through it and make creation a living reality. Train your mind to respond, not react. In every moment of life, challenges arise, situations unfold, and circumstances often appear unexpectedly. The difference between success and failure, peace and turmoil, progress and stagnation is not always in the event itself, but in how the mind handles it. A reaction is automatic, impulsive, and often driven by emotion rather than reason. A response, however, is deliberate, measured, and guided by thought. The untrained mind reacts, the trained mind responds. This simple distinction holds the power to change the course of a life. Reactions are easy because they require no effort. They are triggered by habit, fear, anger, or impatience. When criticized, the untrained mind reacts with defensiveness. When faced with difficulty, it reacts with discouragement. When tempted, it reacts with indulgence. These reactions often create bigger problems than the original challenge, leaving a trail of regret behind them. A response, on the other hand, requires awareness and control. It pauses, considers, and then chooses a course of action aligned with long-term goals and values. Where a reaction adds fuel to the fire, a response calmly directs the flames into light and warmth. Training the mind to respond begins with self-awareness. You must learn to observe your thoughts and emotions without letting them rule you. Instead of rushing headlong into the impulse of the moment, you practice the discipline of stepping back, even if only for a breath, to consider the consequences. This small pause is where wisdom enters. It allows the higher faculties of reason and judgment to guide the decision rather than leaving it in the hands of fleeting emotion. Over time, this practice becomes a habit and the mind naturally begins to respond rather than react. The benefits of this training extend into every area of life. In relationships, responding instead of reacting prevents unnecessary conflict and deepens trust. In business, it leads to better decisions, clearer thinking, and more consistent results. In personal growth, it develops character, resilience, and confidence. People who master this principle are often admired not for their brilliance alone, but for their composure. They become anchors in turbulent waters, steady and dependable because their actions are chosen rather than uncontrolled. To train your mind in this way, feed it daily with ideas of patience, perspective, and purpose. Practice the art of reflection. Review your day and notice where you reacted impulsively, then imagine how you might have responded instead. The more you rehearse in thought, the more natural it becomes in practice. Surround yourself with influences that encourage calmness and discipline rather than agitation and distraction. Slowly but surely, you will discover that the situations which once unsettled you no longer hold the same power. The untrained mind is a slave to circumstance, tossed about by whatever happens to come its way. The trained mind, however, becomes master of circumstance, using every event as raw material for growth. To respond instead of react is to live deliberately, to act with intention, and to take control of your destiny rather than surrendering it to the impulses of the moment. A well-trained mind sees obstacles as stepping stones, not barriers. Life is filled with challenges, and no one is exempt from difficulties. Yet the way we interpret and face these challenges determines whether we rise or fall. An untrained mind sees an obstacle and immediately feels defeated, discouraged, or tempted to quit. It interprets every setback as a wall meant to block progress. But a trained mind views the same obstacle through a different lens. Instead of a barrier, it sees a lesson. Instead of an end, it sees an opportunity. The obstacle becomes a stepping stone, a necessary part of the journey that elevates rather than prevents. This ability is not a matter of blind optimism, but of cultivated perspective. A trained mind has been disciplined to understand that growth comes through resistance. Just as muscles strengthen under weight and character deepens under trial, so too achievement becomes possible only through the obstacles that stand in the way. Without resistance, there is no progress. Without struggle, there is no strength. A well-trained mind accepts this truth and even welcomes it, knowing that each obstacle is not a curse but a tool designed to prepare, refine, and strengthen. When obstacles appear, the untrained mind tends to ask, "Why me?" while the trained mind asks, "What can I learn?" This simple shift in question turns frustration into fuel. A trained thinker recognizes that within every challenge lies the seed of advancement. A failed business teaches strategy that leads to the next success. A rejection develops resilience that will carry through to greater victories. A setback forces the creativity and problem-solving that might never have been discovered without it. Each obstacle, rather than blocking the path, becomes the very material that builds it. To reach this level of thinking requires daily mental discipline. It means feeding the mind with ideas of resilience and persistence. It means surrounding yourself with examples of those who turned their greatest difficulties into their greatest triumphs. History is filled with men and women who faced mountains of opposition yet turned them into stepping stones to greatness. They were not free of obstacles, they were masters of them. What separated them from others was not circumstance but perception, not luck but mindset. The power of the well-trained mind is that it remains calm in the face of adversity. Where others see disaster, it sees direction. Where others see endings, it sees beginnings. This composure creates clarity, and clarity produces solutions. The trained mind does not waste energy fighting the reality of the obstacle, but directs its energy into using the obstacle to advance. Over time, this way of thinking becomes natural, and challenges no longer intimidate but inspire. Every obstacle carries within it a hidden gift, a chance to rise to higher levels of strength, wisdom, and achievement. A trained mind knows that success is not the absence of difficulty, but the mastery of it. It transforms barriers into bridges and problems into possibilities. In this way, obstacles are no longer enemies but allies, stepping stones that lead to the very heights the untrained mind believed were impossible. The mind is the greatest possession you will ever own, and within it lies the power to shape every detail of your life. When you train it with discipline, feed it with constructive thoughts, and guard it against destructive influences, it becomes the architect of your destiny. What you think about consistently, you inevitably move toward, and when imagination is guided by persistence, patience, and self-control, dreams transform into living realities. Obstacles cease to be barriers and instead become stepping stones, each challenge a lesson that prepares you for greater achievements. Success is not the result of luck, but the natural outcome of a mind that has been trained to focus, to respond wisely, and to persist faithfully until the goal is reached. Your environment, your habits, your thoughts, and your actions are all tools in the hands of your mind, and with deliberate training they will carry you from where you are to where you desire to be. The mind, properly disciplined and directed, is not only capable of achieving anything you sincerely desire, but is destined to do so when you choose to master it starting today. Take control of your most powerful possession. Decide what you truly want. Write it down. Read it aloud morning and night. Picture it, believe in it, and move toward it with steady determination. For if you train your mind with purpose, discipline, and faith, you will discover that nothing, absolutely nothing, can stand in your way.